Hello, hello, hello. We are back with another video about Aug Evoker and its status in raid and keys in 11.2. Now, I originally wanted to wait for two things to happen before I made this video. One was hitting 3k IO, and the other was the infamous post Race to World First class tuning. That way I wouldn't make the video and the next day it's invalid, but I've hit 3k and no tuning changes yet. So I'm gonna go out on a limb and make this video. That way we do get tuning, because that's how it usually works. Alright, let's talk about keys first. Right now, I've been playing mostly Scalecommander with 2-piece of the old tier set and 2-piece from the new tier set, as it's better than 4-piece of the new set until like max rank myth pieces, always sim, but I've got 4-piece at 710 and it's simming like 200k plus behind the 2-piece, so that's kind of what I've been sticking with.
Stop.
Now, the first thing with Aug and keys is community perception. That's the first thing I want to talk about. Aug has been a favorite to be hated for quite a while now, and after its big nerf in Season 2 and how people reacted when I was playing it then, I expected a lot of hate and kicks and things like that. Although, I gotta be honest, and this is my personal experience, but I've had a majority of people really enjoy having an Aug in the key. It's probably about 70-30 positive responses. I put up a short earlier of someone saying, "Oh, it's Aug," and then leaving right away, which was only one of 3 bad experiences I've had. The others being that I got kicked from an 8 Arakara for being an Aug, and I was 2900 at the time, so that was a bit confusing. And I've had some other people in the beginning of keys be like, "Are you actually Aug or are you dev?" And I'm like, "I'm Aug. I've been playing Aug since Season 1." And they're like, "All right, I haven't seen one in a while," and they usually don't kick me or anything like that, aside from that one time. But on the other side of things, I've joined a lot of keys where people were like, "Hell yeah, we got an Aug, we love big damage numbers," like they were kind of pumped to have it, or they hadn't played with one in forever and they were kind of excited to see, they were curious and to see like how I was going to do, how they were going to do. And I've had times at the end of the key where they're like, "Aug rocks, dude." Like, whether it's the DPS just being excited about their details damage, or, the healer excited that there's a little extra CC in the group and they don't need to heal as much. They have me also dispelling and cauterizing certain things, especially in Arakara, where that first pull where everybody's getting poisoned. I think the last one I did, I had 30 dispels before the first boss. So sometimes little things like that do make it easier, and people notice that kind of thing. So I have had a generally good experience with the community playing Aug, which I was pleasantly surprised with. I thought I was going to get a little bit more hate. And aside from a few bad experiences, like I said, generally it's been pretty good. Now, that being said, I have been playing Scalecommander 2-piece, like I mentioned, and it's more personal damage, it's really bursty, and it's less buff damage. So on those big pulls, those big first pulls where you lust, I will immediately skyrocket to like 15-16 mil. So the first impression is usually pretty good, and my overall damage on details looks better because I have more personal damage. It's not so much damage that's only going to be shown in the logs. Now, I haven't played much Chrono, but Chronowarden is about 80% buff damage, which means your details damage is going to look pretty poor. And I do think with people still not understanding or even forgetting how Aug buff damage works, that I might have had a worse experience playing that. Even though they can end on similar damage on logs, it's just what people see on details and think, "Oh, bad Aug." You could do 4 million on details and 5 million on logs, or 1 million on details and 5 million on logs, and people would look at that and say you were good in one key and bad in the other. Even though the damage is the same, it's just shown differently, and a lot of people aren't looking at logs for keys. Whenever I'm running as Aug, I'm logging everything because that's the only way to really see, but a lot of people just look at details and say, "Oh, I did good" or "I did bad." So that's definitely influenced the experience I think I've had a little bit. Now, I do recommend, if you're pugging, and unless you're playing with a group of good people, then Scalecommander is the way to go. Even if you don't have 2-piece, it's easier to play, it's perceived better, it's much less comp dependent. I think my best Chrono key was 2 Frosty Ks, or a Frosty K and an Arcane Mage, because their CDs line up really well. But other than that, Scalecommander has been solid across the board. Generally, in any group that I've been in, I've been able to be competitive. Now, as far as actual Aug damage, not community perception, not details perception, but the actual damage, Aug is pretty good right now. I'm not usually topping in good groups, but I'm either second or, comfortably third. I had a 13 hauls recently where I logged about 7 mil overall, which is pretty damn good. But my Frosty K was doing 8.5 mil and my Arcane Mage was at about 8.1 mil. So I was still bottom, but that's not terrible DPS. So even though you're not topping, you can still do good damage. And I do think that the buff benefit on specific pulls in not only halls but all dungeons can make it go a little smoother. So that big first pull where everybody's lusting and sending it, my Frosty case hitting 30-40 million, where without me he wouldn't be as close to that. So I do think it does help in specific scenarios. Even if your overall is the end, you kind of bring a niche experience of like, okay, we can pull a little bigger than normal because everything's going to get nuked down a little quicker. So I think it does bring some of that too as well. Now I do suspect that as people get gear, as people get tier, as you begin to play with generally better players, people are upgrading pieces, they're getting vault pieces. I think Chrono will scale better than Scalecommander will, simply because at some point buffing the Frost DK from 30 to 40 mil is just going to outweigh the little bit of personal damage I have from playing Scalecommander, especially if they nerf the two-piece. So I would be a little prepared for that I think as the tier goes on, Chronowarden is going to start to make its comeback in keys where the buff is better than your personal damage. So like I said, be prepared for that. Now let's talk raid. I've been playing Chrono in raid, and mainly because it's a lot of fun and it's a spec I enjoy, but man, is it difficult to play. And I am still getting the hang of it, to be honest. There's pulls where I do really well, and other times I miss my buff targets and I do tank damage. So for the majority of players, Scalecommander is probably the play, especially in Prague, mainly because it's far less dependent on hitting your buff targets perfect, and you can kind of just send everything as it comes up, keep ebb and might up, and do generally well. Chrono is a bit more of a spreadsheet class where you need to know everything that's happening 30 seconds before it does, which can be extremely tough for 99% of the player population. So if you really want to get into the nitty-gritty of Chrono and get your buff targets down to a science, it can be so much fun to play, and it's been some of the most fun I've had in raid in a long time, but it's going to be a steep learning curve. If you're looking to just play Aug and Raid and want the easier spec that's going to perform similar if you're not playing Chrono very well, then Scalecommander is probably going to be that class. Because if you play both at a high level, Chrono wins. But if you can't play Chrono at a high level, Scalecommander is going to be as good or better because you can just play it better. So if that's the scenario with you, then just go Scalecommander, because you're not going to be struggling as much to just play the class, to just learn the mechanics if you're progging, and you're going to just do generally better because it's just less cognitive load. Now, lastly, I know people are going to ask, do I play Dev or do I play Aug and Raid? And right now, as far as damage goes, they're pretty close. But Dev is way, way easier to play. So again, it comes down kind of to preference. You can try really hard as Chrono, play well, and probably beat Dev/Scalecommander, or you could play Scalecommander, which is a bit easier and be comparable to Dev, or you could play the easiest of the three, Dev, and do just as well. So it kind of comes down to what you want to do and how much you want to invest into the spec. Like I said, Chrono Aug has been some of the most fun I've had in raid, albeit I would probably do better myself as Dev or Scalecommander. But I just like Chrono and I want to improve at it, so that's kind of what I'm playing right now. But if you just want to play some Aug and Raid, Scalecommander's solid. It's easy to play. If you just want to go to Raid and have an easy class that's going to do really well, because Dev's still doing really well, you can just play Dev. And it's a very simple and straightforward class. So, it's like I said, it kind of comes down to what you want to do and how much you want to invest into the class. But, alright. That's another Aug status update in 11.2. I'm sure as soon as I post this video, we'll see some class tuning and I'll have to make another video. But until that time comes, guys, get out there, play what you want, have some fun. It's super early in the season. There's no reason to be sweating the small stuff. We have plenty of time to play. Play what you want to play. Enjoy yourself. Have fun. That's what this game's about. Until next time, guys.